This definitely has to be probably one of my favorite batches that I have made to date. And there are so many variations. There are so many things that you can do. There are so many different bone types that you can use, but I think this is probably going to be my favorite. What is going on, friends? Welcome back to the Honeystead. My name is Kaylee. If you are new here, first I want to say welcome. I'm a beekeeper. I'm also herbalist, homemaker. I think I've definitely know that I've shared a couple of times, which I think we probably need to get some t-shirts that say, you know, feral housewife, because yeah. Well, today I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about what I have in this pot. This is going to be my second batch of bone broth that I have already done. And I wanted to kind of share with you guys my recipe, how I do it. But today it is ready to be preserved. And there's a nice thick layer of fat on top of that, which I will be saving that as well. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about bone broth and my process and share with you guys, because this is so easy to make and something that I absolutely love. I've been playing around with bone broth recipes for many years, and I've really found different little things that I have liked depending on the type of bone. If I'm using a chicken carcass, we raise a good bit, about 100 meat chickens a year. When we go to harvest them and we cook them, I actually save a good handful of our chicken bones and the carcass and the meat and everything. And what I'll do is I'll just throw that right into the roasting pan, add my water, add some herbs, whatever chopped up veggies, if I've got some onions or carrots, a little splash of apple cider vinegar, organic apple cider vinegar with Mother. I feel like it makes it the best. And then a pinch of some real salt from Redmond. That makes a delicious chicken stock. Not as packed full of the gelatin and the collagen as the beef bones. That is the other bone type, and my more preferred bone when it comes to making a really good bone broth is by using our beef bones. Now, my family and I raise out a couple of cattle every year, mainly to you know, put into our freezer and feed our family. But when we're doing that, like, I want to save the most that our animals can offer, and the bones are a huge part of it. So I end up getting bags and bags of these wonderfully rich bones that I found with the beef bones. Instead of just throwing them in the stock pot, I actually take them and I roast them in my oven. And I have a few different recipes. This one that I did, and the last one that I did, I had some apples that were getting ready to turn, and I had some fresh sage, and I also had more Redmond real salt, which makes it like perfect. I roasted it in the oven for about 30 to 45 minutes at around 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once that was done, I took all of them out, and even all of the apples and the sage. You can also add onions. You can pretty much add anything. And I actually prefer to do large batches of bone broth in my roasting pan. It's like a 22 quart roasting pan. I have a few of them. They have been extremely helpful, especially when it comes to like making tomato sauce, or when I'm doing like big canning. Like those roasting pans are truly a game changer when it comes to food preservation. But I take all the bones and I put it in the roasting pan, and then I just kind of top it with, you know, a good bit of water, not too much, and then add apple cider vinegar. That is, I think, one of the biggest keys, is that little splash of apple cider vinegar. I turn it on low and I let it cook for a good like 24 hours. I feel like the longer that it is in that roasting pan, the more collagen is able to be mixed in with all of that wonderful rich broth. After that's done, I will take it all out and I will strain it, and then I let it sit and cool down. Now I have a big pot here that is covered with a nice layer of fat. I'm not going to get rid of that fat. That fat is actually going to end up going back into a mason jar, because this is what I use to cook with. I don't use seed oils other than like olive oil, cold pressed organic olive oil I do use on occasion, but primarily the substance that I'm using to cook in is tallow and also lard. That's the benefit of, you know, having animals and being able to use everything that they have to offer. I've shared with you guys that I've used when I was raising more of our one breed of pig, the Mangalistas, Mangalistas, however you want to pronounce it. I still have a few of them. They're the big woolly pigs. But I'll take their lard and I've used it to cook with. I also started making lotion with it. Whipped body butter. I'll tell you, like, I know it sounds crazy, but it is so good for your skin. The same goes for tallow. I love tallow. This is my last year in my 30s, which, like, I know is kind of crazy. I've kind of talked a little bit about, you know, my skincare routine with you guys, and I did share a recipe, which I can tag that video in the description. But some of the things that I use on my face is honey with crushed rose. I'll make a honey rose mask. I will 100% use tallow on my face. I actually have tallow that is due for one more rendering, and then I think it's going to be good enough that we can start whipping it to make that lotion, which I plan on showing that to you guys. So just, you know, bear with me on that one. But the other thing that I really try to focus on is taking collagen. That I think is key. And that is one of the reasons why, another reason why I sip on my bone broth, because this is packed full of collagen. Not only is it packed full of collagen, but it's also packed full of minerals like magnesium and calcium and amino acids. The collagen, I feel like, not only is really good for your skin, but it is also really beneficial to your bones and your joints. But this right here, not only is it really good for the collagen aspect on your joints, for your skin, it is also so good for your gut. I have found that every morning I will get up and I'll do a spoonful of honey on an empty stomach with my mushroom blends, which will be back in stock very soon. I will be putting that out there. But then also sipping on my bone broth too. And then after that, I pretty much, you know, go about my day and eat normally. Now, when it comes to storing your bone broth, I've done a few variations, a few different techniques. I used to take my bone broth and I would, don't laugh at me, but I would take my bone broth and I would take my bone broth and I would actually start to fill those individual breast milk bags. Back when I was nursing my children, you can get a whole box of them. I would take my bone broth with me on the go. So I would fill those little bags, throw them in the freezer. That was awesome. It has been many years since I have nursed my baby, so I don't have those anymore. The other thing that I found that's been helpful is I will take this and I will freeze it in the ice cube trays. That is also a great way to do it. However, all of my ice cube trays, we thought would be a fun idea to go ahead and like render down our beeswax and fill the ice cube trays. So now Long story, I don't have those trays anymore, but I've also taken my bone broth and I have freeze dried it. That probably has to be one of my favorite ways of being able to preserve this, because essentially like it turns into a powder. All I do is scoop out what I need, put it in my cup, add some water, some hot water, and just sip away at it. I love that technique as well. I wanted to try something a little different, but just in case if it didn't work today, I do have my freeze drying trays that we will go ahead and use. And I may go ahead and pop these in the freeze dryer just because of the convenience factor on having that powder has been tremendous. Plus, you guys, my freezer tends to become this land of unknown when I'm going through and I'm like, what the heck did I put in this freezer? Like, you just don't want to know. We have multiple freezers on our farm. You'd be surprised what's in there. I'm just saying. And I know I'm not alone here. So I am gonna go ahead and start cutting this down. It's gonna be nice and thick and gelatin-like, which is exactly the goal that I'm going for. And I'm just gonna go ahead and just plop it on these trays. I will probably go ahead and start pre-freezing these, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, if I choose to freeze dry it, they're already on the trays ready to go. If I don't, I can just take the chunk at a time and just, you know, go ahead and thaw it out and sip away. But I wonder how we're gonna do this so you can see it. I don't know how thick. Ooh, it's not that thick. Oh! Change of plans. I give up. Okay, so welcome to my channel. Y'all, I make a mess. My mom's gonna be so mad at me. Oh, this is great. Good stuff. All right, well, I've got this wonderful fat here, and I cooled this bone broth down. My goal is to go ahead. It is so rich. It is so thick. It is so beautiful. I am gonna go ahead and load this lovely liquid, lovely thick liquid, into these trays, into my trays, and we're gonna go ahead and freeze them. But this right here is some gold right here. And I've got some cast iron pans that I will need to go ahead and plan on treating. My husband bought me one of my Christmas presents that I have been wanting is a cast iron wok. So I will be taking all of this. Y'all, I thought that this was gonna be a little bit more gelatin-like, but I took this pot out. I set it out in my kitchen thinking that it was gonna be like good for the last, 45 minutes. Well, it's a little bit more liquidy than what I anticipated. And it smells delicious. I mean, it smells like really, really good. But what I'm gonna do is fill this jar of all of the tallow that's in this, and then I'm gonna render it down one more time and then strain it and have it all cleaned, clean for use. I don't want it to go to waste, and it's not. I mean, this right here is gonna give me a couple of months worth of cooking, and it is delicious. But I cannot believe I just made a mess. Actually, I can. There's no, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were discussing this whole thing with AI and, how potentially at some point anybody who shares videos on YouTube will, it might not be real, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. This is all new to me when it comes to that factor. But the one thing I think that I do have going for me is I don't know if AI is going to recreate my messes. So if I start being really, really clean like with anything that I do, then it might not be me. I give up. So this is my bone broth. It's really rich. It's delicious. I gotta clean this up. I'll be right back. Because we're doing a change of plans, I'm gonna go ahead and strain this out now into my measuring cups, and I will take this and I will actually pour and go ahead and start freezing my bone broth in the trays. I found that it is way easier to actually have my trays inside the freezer and then pouring while it's in there, so that I'm not trying to walk it over to the freezer. Y'all know I'm already messy. I don't need to make a bigger mess. So we're gonna work smarter. We're gonna work smarter. She's gonna be happy about that. All right, so what I did want to share with you guys, I wanted to share that this recipe is actually, it's in our winter wellness guide, or a variation of this recipe. You could easily, you could play around with a few different, things, but this recipe I shared in the winter wellness guide, and I wanted to kind of share this because I thought that this was a really awesome opportunity. But I'm taking part, hold on, okay, can't talk and pour at the same time. It's very hard. I'm taking part in a really packed holistic health bundle, and I did want to just go ahead and share that with you because it is limited. The availability is limited for only a couple of days. This is like the land of unknown. That is some jewel weed that I freeze. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I gotta work on this. Anyways, well, at least you guys got to, like, minus the mess, I'm glad that you guys got to get a little bit more information about the bone broth and why it's so good for you. I've got this beautiful, rich fat that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna render it down, strain it a couple of times, and then put it back in the jar and in the refrigerator. This one's gonna come for me because those 4 trays are loaded up. I think at this point the plan is, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and freeze dry it. It just makes it so much easier for me. And it keeps my freezers from being overly packed. We are getting close to doing some processing here on the farm. So I do need to kind of make some space, use the things up in the freezer. If you are interested in kind of learning how I freeze dry this, I will do this, just not today. I actually have got a few leftovers that I'm getting ready to load up in the freeze dryer. I've got some bulgogi and rice. I've got a beef stew. I've got some extra ground hamburger, and then I think I have some mashed potatoes. So that is what I'm getting ready to load up into this freeze dryer. And let that do its thing, and then when it's done, I'll plan on going ahead and freeze drying all of this broth and turning it into a powder and just, adding it into some of my meals. If you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about how to support your health, especially during the winter months, I do have the winter wellness guide that is available. It is on my website, but for right now, up until January 10th, there is a massive bundle of over 101 ebooks and courses and guides that has a value of over $5,000 that is available for only $50. There are so many different resources. I've been enjoying a whole handful of these ebooks between the Oxymel ebook. There's one on liver health. There is one on fermenting food. There's another one that I'm like starting to really dive into, which goes into detail about cleaning supplies and how do you make your own products. So I've definitely been enjoying all of those. I will put that link down below and I'll pin it in the description. That sale is only until January 10th. but I highly recommend that you take advantage and just see everything that it has to offer. I mean, it is truly packed. Plus, the one thing that I love about it is once you purchase it at that $50 rate, you have it for a lifetime. So there's no cutoff like, oh, it's going to be taken away in a month. There's no way that you're going to go through all of this information within a month, but there are so many contributors. I personally have been enjoying them, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. That is my plan for tomorrow. We are supposed to get snowed in. I'm really excited, and I will be sitting by the fire, sipping on my bone broth and enjoying all of these ebooks. I have to finish cleaning up my mess, but as always, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and learn something old. Bye, guys.